All right, this is the class for Thursday, February 14th or 15th, February 16th, maybe. Okay, here we go. Here are the terms that we need to know: Hashavat Aveda, lost and found. Chayav La'akriz, meaning obligated to announce. Mitziot Shalo, his own findings, meaning he can keep it. Hefker, when we declare something ownerless. Ketzad, how? What does that mean? Shinui is a um, is an alteration in something that's changed. And of course, the word teku. And what does teku mean? That's question number one, right? Teku means something like stalemate. We don't know the answer, but Elijah certainly knows. We've got some assumptions, and I was telling the class today that I really wish, actually, that next time I teach this class in a few years, I will make sure to teach the story about Rav and Rav Chanina after this one, because I think I think that Rav Chanina's and Rav's story are kind of asking the questions like, what do we know about other people? And in a way, the nafkamina, right, the takeaway of that story of Rav and Rav Chanina is that we don't know ourselves well, and we don't really know others well, and it takes really hard. It's a really hard job to kind of figure out if we to really know ourselves and our own intentions, and that's the whole reason why, at least according to Levinas, that Rabbi Hanina was not able to forgive Rav because Rav himself didn't really understand his own intentions. And interesting enough, actually, right? Um, Levinas says that actually Rav Chanina did understand the intentions of Rav. But this story here is also about intentions in a way. And even though we're using the mitzvah of lost and found to kind of discuss this, a lot of this is really asking the question of what kind of assumptions can we make about the intentions of others. So the first question is, the Torah kind of gives us one answer to this question of what's the assumption. That's your question number two. The Mishnah gives another example of the assumptions we can make about the intentions of others, and the Mishnah's answers number three can be divided to 3a and 3b because there are two assumptions that are made, and then the Talmud, which we're not going to have. So the Torah is basically saying, as far as the assumption the Torah can make of others, is people always want what's lost back, no matter what. The Mishnah complicates that by saying that people will try to get stuff of value back and stuff that they can prove it's theirs, right? If it has no value to them, or if they have no hope that they can actually prove their ownership, they don't want to get it back. So it's a little bit more. The assumption of others is, yeah, you want it back, but sometimes you're just not going to be able to get it back, and your wanting it back is not always, but its intended value comes into play whether we want it or not. And the Talmud remains to be seen. And we're going to come up with an answer today of what the Talmud is saying about intention. It's not necessarily going to be the answer that we get fully at the end of this discussion, but at least it's one that we're going to get today. So, of course, in good fashion, the Gemara looks to the words of the Mishnah, and the Mishnah says that one of the first words are after it says the word, these are the things that someone can keep. Elu mitziot shelo. It's going to list those things, and the very first thing it lists is he found scattered fruit. And of course, so this is the first lines of the Mishnah. They're quoting matzah, perot, mifu, zarin. He found fruits that are scattered. And then the question they're going to ask is kama, which means how much. Now, we discussed in class, what might this word how much, what are they talking about? How much what, right? So give me four different ideas of what the how much what we're going to get as the answer, because this is a question and it's going to come up with an answer. How much what, right? So that should be what, A, B, C, D, for A, B, C, D. Okay. Um, okay. And so right, what kind of question do we expect? What kind of answer do we expect from a question of comma? And we went through a lot of different things in class. You can maybe even see it in the back there. That we thought it's calorie value, worth, how scattered, how big, how much fruit, how much pieces, how much money, how much value, how much effort, how long it's going to take, right? Um, And the real question that the Talmud is going to ask is, or answer with the comma is, what is the amount of objects in the amount of space that I will call scattered? We spend a lot of time in class on this because it's a little difficult to understand. So, for instance, pretend, and I'm gonna walk over to the board for a second for this because this is a hard one. So pretend that I come up with a definition of scattered equals, right, this space, and let's call this 1 foot on each side, 1 foot. And let's say that there are three things: thing one, thing two, thing three. Let's add two more, actually. Three, four, three, five. Okay. So let's say the Talmud comes up and says that is the definition of mifuzarin, of fruits that are scattered. That is the very definition of fruits that if I see on the ground in that amount of space, in that quantity, that I'm going to say that is mifuzarin. That is something mitziot sheli. This is something I can keep. So this is really important because so now imagine that instead of seeing 5 of those pieces of fruit, we saw 6 or 7. Let's say we saw 7 pieces of fruit. Now, when I see that on the ground, now we have this definition of if scattered equals 5 fruits in 1 foot, in 1 cubic foot, or 1 square foot. What about 7 pieces of fruit? Is that still mitziot shelo, meaning I can keep that, or is it something I now need to announce? All right. Now remember, our definition of scattered stuff I can keep is this. If I add 2 things, am I making it more scattered or less scattered? And we're going to call that question number 5 on your homework. And then question number 6 is, what if I took I had 5 and I said that's the definition of scattered. And if I find it like that, it's mitziot sheli because it's mefuzarin. But what about if I took one away? Is it now less scattered or more scattered? That's question number 6. And if it's less scattered or more scattered, how does that should determine if I can keep it or I have to announce it. So in this case, do I have to keep it or I have to announce it? That's question number 7, right? So actually, what are the answers? So the answer is that if 5 is my definition of a fuzarin, if I see anything more than that, it's even it's considered less mefuzarin, meaning I now have to actually announce it if I saw more stuff because it's less scattered. But if I have less, it's more scattered. Okay, so that's important 2 pieces of critical information as we move forward in our study here. Sorry, I'm just picking up the things that I dropped, the caps on the pens. Okay, so here's the answer that we're going to come up with. The answer is that Rabbi Yitzchak says a definition of scattered, meaning the definition of something that if I see it on the ground is considered something that is mitziot sheli, that I can keep, then the definition of that is a kav in 4 amot. So first of all, what's an amah? An amah is a measurement that is from your elbow to your tallest finger, and we see actually that an amah is used, and amot are basically a plural of that. So an amah is this. 4 of them are probably like a square amah. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So a kav in 4 amot. So how much is a kav? Well, it just so happens we have a book called the Steinsaltz Reference Guide, and look at that, Talmudic weights and measurements, and look what it says. It says a kav is 24 eggs. So let's look at that for a second. A kav be'arba amot. So there's an hamad. That's probably 4 amot, or that's considered. There's 24 eggs worth of stuff, and that if I saw this on the ground, I would say, this is what? This is something that is scattered or not scattered. That's question number 7. This is something that I need to keep, or I'm chayav lakriz, I'm obligated to announce. That's question number 8. And then if I were to take, there's 24 eggs here. If I were to take one egg away, now all of a sudden, does this change its status? Is this still considered mifuzarin? Or is it now considered something I am chayav lakriz? That's question number 9. And now go back to the 24. If I were to add to this, add an egg to this, does this now become mifuzarin, or is it no longer mifuzarin? Scattered or no longer scattered? That's question 10. 11. And if we had not 24 eggs but 25 eggs or over, what would I need? Would I need to announce it, or could I keep it? That's question number 11. Okay. Now, the Gemara brings a challenge with the words Heichi Dame. How can this be so? Right? The Gemara is questioning our math here. How can this be so? What do you think they're having a problem with? That's question number 12. And how do you think they're going to answer this question? So here's a little hint. They might say, why are you making amount of stuff in the amount of space the criteria for what is considered scattered and not scattered? Instead, try another criteria. So what could that possible criteria be? Give maybe another answer for what that could be. And this is a hard one, but what it's going to say is, actually, don't make the amount of stuff in the amount of space the criteria for if something is scattered or not. Make it the intent of the person. What does that mean? And so I guess what I'm asking is, imagine that you're watching someone and you see they walk into a space and they walk out of that space and you see some stuff on the ground. So the question is, did they intend to put that stuff on the ground, or did they not intend to put that on the ground? Question number 14 is, what would they need to have done to make you convinced that they intended to place it on the ground? Okay? And what would have needed to happen for you to be convinced that they did not intend to put it on the ground? That's question number 15. Now, interestingly enough, the rabbis assume, and we had a question about this in class, if you put something on the ground yourself, if you place it on the ground, that is stuff that you're going to want back. That's stuff that you were intending always to come back for. Why is that? Why is that chayav lakriz then? Or why is that not mitziot shelo? And question number 17 is, the rabbis believe that if it in some way, if you're walking along and you tripped and everything kind of flew out of your hands, that's something that you do not want to get back, that we're considering that truly scattered, and that is something that is, anyone who finds it can have it. Why is that? Question number 17. So the Gemara is coming back and basically saying the following, and here are the words here. They're saying the following. So he found this is from the Mishnah. He quotes the Mishnah. He found peirot mefuzarin. He found scattered fruits. How much, in what kind of space how much is considered scattered? Right? Oh, that Rav Yitzchak says that's a kav's worth of stuff in this amount, in 4 amot of space. And then the Talmud asks, is this really so? And then here's what it says. If by way of falling, if by way of placing. So first of all, what do you think it's just going to say here? If by way of falling, um, what do we? If by way of fall, if that stuff just kind of flew out of your hand, fell out of your hand, we're going to call that chayav lakriz or mitziot shelo. If by way of placing, that's question number 18. Question number 19, if by way of placing, are we going to call that mitziot sheli or chayav lakriz? And that's question number 19. And here's how it goes. It says the Gemara is challenging this idea of a certain amount of stuff in a certain amount of space. And they're going to do it by saying, I can tell you a scenario where you, even if it was less than that amount, you would need to return it. I can tell you a scenario, meaning even if it was more, even if it was even if it was, I can tell you a scenario where even if it was less amount of stuff in that amount of space, I would still need to announce. I can think of a scenario, even when there's more stuff in that amount of space, that you would not be, that you would, more amount of space that you would still be able to keep. Again, let me say it one more time. The Gemara is going to say, I could think of a time, of a situation where you found much less than a kav on the ground and you would not be able to take it. I can think of a scenario where you find so much more on the ground than just a kav and you are allowed to take it. What are those scenarios? Oh, the scenario is if I saw the person and I saw what happened and I saw that it basically blew up out in the air, kind of fell out of my hands. If I sat there and was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened, and I walk away, that means no matter what's on the ground, even if it's not mefuzarin, even if it's all in a clump, because you saw me that I looked at it and I walked away, I'm not going to keep it, right? So even if it's more than a cob's worth of stuff in that amount of space, I would be able to keep it. But what if it was just two items and you saw me put those objects down? And I might have even said to myself, talking to myself, oh, I'm going to come back for this later, right? Because that's what's going on in my mind. Then you come along, you're like, oh, this is much less than a kav in arba amot. This is actually this is much less, so it doesn't fit the definition of so it's totally fits the definition of mifuzarin because it's less than anything that's a kav or less in that amount of space equals mifuzarin. Then all of a sudden I'm gonna be able to keep it. But no. There's the situation. I saw that person wants to return and get it, so that's not considered mifuzarin. That's considered something I have to announce. So in this way, it's a little complicated, but the Gemara tries to disprove the idea of matzah peirot of kav barabamot. Your question number 20 is how exactly is it done? And it's really, again, the primary thing you need to know is if we have this definition of kav and arba amot equals something I can keep. Normally, if that's the definition, that means, and this is question number 21, if I have more than a kav in arba amot, that means what? Can I keep it or do I have to announce? And if I find less than a kav in arba amot, this is question number 2, do I keep it or I have to announce? Those two answers are critical to your understanding of this piece of Talmud text.